Hello there, people of the internet. I was out here not too terribly long ago. Wow. Now that I think about it, it's longer than I was expecting it to be. Hold on a second, what the hell is this? Oh, it's a stripper clip from the last video I made. Anyway, I was out here not too terribly long ago with a buddy of mine, and we were just having a range day. Like, a lot of times I'll come out here and we'll blast a couple of rounds. Not necessarily me and this one buddy, you know, I bring all sorts of people out here to this range. But a lot of times I'll come out here and I'll just blast a couple of rounds. A lot of times I'll have a buddy with me. It won't be anything real big, but this one day we were like out here for like 6 hours, just non-stop letting loose down here at the range. And my friend is new to firearms, and I am overly ecstatic that people are becoming more and more interested in different aspects of firearms. You know, what makes them tick, how they work, what makes a gun this way and this other gun that way. People are finding a fascination with them, and I think it is the most beautiful thing in the world. I am so overly ecstatic about it. I can't even begin to express how excited I am. But my friend is new to firearms, and we were just out here absolutely blasting away. I broke out all sorts of stuff for him to try. And one thing I did was I broke out a couple of 30-06 rifles, specifically my M1 Garand here, or Garand, or whatever it is that you decide to call this thing. I broke this out. They absolutely loved it for obvious reasons. And then I also broke out my bolt-action Sporterized 1917. We were firing the same exact ammunition, but my friend had noticed that this right here had quite a bit more recoil than the M1 Garand did, and he had no idea why. He's just one of those people that, well, whenever you don't know anything about firearms, you think to yourself, this is the caliber it's shooting, so all firearms that shoot this caliber must have the same recoil. Like, for example, my brother, whenever he asks about recoil, he's like, you know, does it have the same recoil as a 308? And I'm like, 308 fired out of what? There's so many different variables that go into recoiling. I thought I'd go ahead and cover a couple of these. Whenever we were out here, he had the 1917. We were firing 150 grain full metal jacket rounds downrange just because they're nice and cheap. And he had noticed it had more recoil than the M1 Garand did. Well, I said, just because they're both 30-06 does not mean that they're going to have the same levels of recoil. And then I also brought up that not all 30-06 rounds have same levels of recoil either. Since we were firing 150 grain full metal jackets, I actually went back, grabbed some 220 grain soft points, you know, my hunting ammo, and I let him lob some of that downrange, and he noticed a significant amount of recoil increase in the 1917 rifle. He wanted to run it through the M1 Garand, but I was like, no, that's not something we do to the Garand. But he learned a lot that day. The size of the bullet, you know, how much weight the bullet has, that's how much weight you're launching downrange. Now, every action has an equal and opposite reaction, so if you're sending more weight downrange, you're going to have more weight coming back into your shoulder. So that's going to increase recoil. If you're sending it faster downrange, you're going to have more recoil coming back into your shoulder, because that's more energy going in that direction, so you're going to have more energy coming back in this direction. Now, a couple of other variables that attribute to recoil. The rifle itself plays a tremendously large part of it. For example, this 1917 that's been sporterized and cut down weighs a lot less than that M1 Garand in its original configuration. I don't know how much less, but I'm telling you it's like several pounds less. As a result, this right here does have a lot more recoil. The lighter the gun, the less mass you have there to absorb the energy. Like, whenever the bullet is flying in that direction, you have the same energy pushing back in this direction, which is absorbed by the giant mass of the gun coming into your shoulder. And the lighter weight the gun, the less energy it absorbs, so the more energy is put into your shoulder, therefore the harsher the recoil. There's like a bug right there. Get out of here. Well, I think it's gone. Now, a lot of times whenever you get your lighter weight rifles, especially like your polymer stock rifles and whatnot that are extremely lightweight, they compensate for that lightweight lack of recoil absorption by putting a pretty hefty rubber butt plate on the back, which actually helps quite a bit as long as you have one that's not like made of stone. Like this right here is just a metal butt plate. Since this is sporterized, I might throw a rubber extension on this just because this 30-06 does kick a little bit hard. But I mean, it's something I can handle, but there's other people that come out here that don't necessarily like that. But a rubber butt plate will definitely assist with recoil. You still have the same energy coming back, but that rubber butt plate absorbs a lot of it and slows it down. Now, with your bolt action rifle, there's nothing moving whenever you pull that trigger other than the striker slamming into the primer. That's one of the main reasons why bolt action rifles have more recoil than semi-automatics. Because with a semi-automatic rifle, such as my M1 Garand right here, or Garand, or however it is that you feel like pronouncing this, whenever you pull that trigger, much like how the rubber butt pad absorbs a lot of that energy, the recoil spring and the reciprocating mass of the bolt actually absorb quite a bit of energy as well. It almost acts the same as the rubber. I'm trying to explain this in the most layman's term possible. I'm pretty sure I didn't get that right. But as the rubber butt plate squishes into itself, it is in one sense absorbing recoil, but in another sense trying to push the gun back away from the shooter's shoulder. The operating mass of the bolt and the recoil spring do essentially the same thing in a semi-automatic rifle. Of course, it happens so fast that you don't even notice it, but it is significant enough for people to notice that semi-automatics have not necessarily a considerable amount of less recoil, but a noticeable amount. And of course, in your semi-automatics, most of them are going to have some sort of operating gas system, unless it's, you know, a caliber that is so minute that it just requires a delayed mechanism versus an actual locking mechanism. Those delayed mechanisms oftentimes don't have much recoil anyway. But anytime you have something with a gas system inside of it, the amount of gas that is pushing that operating system back and cycling that bolt actually have a pretty big impact on recoil as well. I try to keep this M1 Garand as undergassed as possible. I do have more malfunctions as a result, but I know my gun's not being damaged. Long story short, this stuff's ammo specific, and you gotta really pay attention to that gas system. If you have more gas going through your operating system and shoving your operating system back at a far greater velocity than it's supposed to, then just the impact of that gas system and operating system onto the back of the receiver is going to attribute to recoil. So that's another factor that plays into that. Okay, well, I think I've covered like the main big points. There's a lot of other little variables. I mean, hell, the harmonics of the gun, the weight distribution, whether or not it's balanced properly or not, whether or not you have a bunch of weight up front to stop upwards recoil, whether or not you have a muzzle compensator on it to go ahead and try and pull the gun either downwards or forwards, or there's like the Chris Vector, which has a built-in recoil absorption system to try and keep the gun on target for as long as possible. Those are different add-ons that I decided to go ahead and not cover. They do exist, but they're not the primary attributing factors to what makes a gun recoil. Well, I suppose a lot of your modern guns do have a muzzle compensator on it. I probably should explain that as well, some sort of muzzle brake system. With a muzzle brake system, well, for your newer shooters, I'll try to explain this. At the end of the barrel, you're often going to see like what looks like a cage or some sort of barrel extension that has a bunch of holes in it. That is designed so the escaping gas either pulls the gun in one specific direction or multiple directions in most cases. Most of the time it's going to be forward and down to try and alleviate upward pressure and recoil. This way you can, in theory, hold your gun on target easier and have less recoil into your body, so you have faster follow-up shots. It works pretty well depending on the muzzle compensator that you have. There's good designs and bad designs. A lot of your older rifles and most of your sporting rifles aren't going to have these muzzle compensators. Most of the time they're considered, you know, tactical items, and and used on scary rifles and things like that. But there's enough of them out there that I figured I'd go ahead and cover that. Okay, now that we're, done with all of that, we are currently out at the range, and I can't bring a Garand on scene and not send off a couple of rounds and let you guys listen to the Garand ping as the clip flies out of the gun. So we're not at a very far distance here. Honestly, I don't really feel like doing some distance shooting, just target shooting. Still not feeling all that great. I had a little medical episode not too terribly long ago. Still pretty weak, still feeling a little on the dizzy side. Way more manageable than I was though. But I am bound and determined to get out here to the range. So I'm out here at the range. Let's go ahead, send some lead downrange. It's just 150 grain full metal jackets. I do have the adjustable gas system in this thing, so I don't have to worry about destroying my operating rod. All right, send some lead. Man, that 30-06 round hits so hard. Oh my God, I hit the concrete. Well, now that that concrete basically doesn't exist, I'm gonna go ahead and say this steel target's probably gonna fall down on the next shot. Oh, hey look, I had a failure to feed. We're just gonna go ahead and manually load that one in. Perfect. Oh, there goes the concrete again. Well, we seem to be hitting a little low here. I'm gonna try aiming a bit higher and I'll adjust my sights accordingly. Man, that Garand ping was cool. I might have aimed a little too high on that one. Oh well, I'll take the Garand ping over the steel ring any day. Now where the hell do I put this? I'll just set this right there, I guess. Perfect. Alright, well, just because I brought out the 1917, and I had a couple of extra rounds laying around that, were not enough to fill up a full M1 Garand clip, although I only fire partials, just because ammo's so expensive. I went ahead and I tossed a couple of rounds into the 1917. That's my excuse, not a very good one, but I'm still gonna launch some lead with this thing. Now, this Sporterized 1917 is, well, the sight system on it is questionable at best. I just kind of took the rear sight off of a Ruger. I don't know what Ruger, no idea, but I stuck it on the back of this thing. Whoever had drilled the holes for the scope mount had too much to drink while they were doing it. And they are not even at all. They're probably about 3 millimeters in any direction, so I'd have to re-drill those if I wanted to mount a scope on this thing. So instead, I just stuck a rear sight on this thing, and it actually works pretty well. Can't quite remember if it fires high or low. I'm pretty sure it fires just a smidgen high. Let's find out. Yep, that was just a tad high. About 3 inches high at this distance. Man, this really does have some hefty recoil. I should definitely consider getting a rubber butt pad for it. You know what? I should just take this Garand clip and toss it right into my pocket before I lose it forever. Man, I love this rifle. It's CMP refurbishment. It is in immaculate condition, man. I can't get over just how gorgeous this gun is. I gotta show it off at least a little bit in the video. Can't believe I finally own one of those. For the longest time, I've wanted an M1 Garand. It's like my dream rifle. And my gun store finally called me and he said, man, we got a gorgeous one here for you. I said, I'll take it. I don't care what it costs. I'll take it. And boy, did I take it. Not as good as that steel silhouette, though. I mean, that thing is still standing. That's a wasp right there. Get out of here, you. It's not bothering me, I guess. Unless it starts bothering me. Get out of here, you. Okay, I hit the wasp and it disappeared. I don't like that. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching. I think the wasp is gone, maybe? Now I'm worried. I should invest in one of those salt guns that you can use to take out bugs. Anyway, the steel silhouette is still standing. I wish I had more ammo to launch at that thing and knock it down, but this is all the ammo that I brought out with me, and my God, it was 30-06 expensive right now. Like, I'm better off buying 6.5 Jap because it's actually cheaper than 30-06 right now. Anyway, folks, subscribe to the channel for more because I do this all the time. Like the video if you actually like the video. That helps out with the algorithm. Description down below has a lot of goodies and links and social medias and Discords and Patreon and things like that. I am going to... I'm probably going to make another video just because it's my day off and I'm having a really good time. Like I said, I was bound and determined to get out here to the range, so now I'm out here at the range. Thank you, Kevin! I'm surprised we didn't hear him earlier. Or did we? Kevin's my peacock. I got 4 of them. They're all named Kevin. They're noisy birds. Alright, thanks for watching. Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.